from downtown Chicago. The event, PBA Chicago Open. The reason? A $40,000 first place prize and a tour exemption for next season. With our 4 finalists, the PBA on Espn is ready to roll.
In our first semifinal match, the reigning PBA Rookie of the Year is seeking his first career title. From Garland, Texas, Chris Johnson. His opponent, a PBA Hall of Famer with 22 career titles, looking for his first win in 2 years. From Alpharetta, Georgia, Brian Voss. Our second semifinal match features a former Rookie of the Year with 2 career titles. From Wichita, Kansas, Rick Steelsmith. His opponent hails from Cincinnati, Ohio, a 2-time winner and the defending champion for this event, the Chief, Brian Himmler.
The PBA Tour returns as the Vernon Chicago with a center from third stranger, 34th overall time. That's the West to Chicago. And welcome everyone to the PBA Chicago Open. Dave Ryan with Randy Peterson. Randy, time for the brackets.
Thanks, Dave. In semifinal number 1, reigning Rookie of the Year, Chris Johnson, looks for his first title. His opponent, Hall of Famer Brian Voss, looks for his 23rd. Semifinal number 2, former Rookie of the Year, Rick Steelsmith, squares off against the defending champion of this event, Brian Himmler. Now let's go lane side with Dave Ryan.
Brian Voss, you talked last night about trying to get yourself back to the #1 spot in the world. How critical is this event today, trying to win this to get back on track for you?
I want to win every single week, Dave. You know, it's my job. And you know, this would be a great start. It's, you know, that's what motivates me. I want to be the best player in the world. I don't like just being a competitor. And you know, this is the first time I bowled Chris, so hopefully this will be some history.
Does it factor into the preparation? And how do you approach this match because you've never faced CJ before?
You know, I just want to get out of the gates real good. He's a very explosive type of player. When he gets it going, he throws a lot of strikes. So just got to get it done quick.
And Randy, we know the Hall of Famer Brian Voss likes this oil pattern quite a bit.
He sure does, Dave. In fact, the last 2 times Brian Voss has won has been on this very oil pattern. This is our first regular tour event. Last week was the ABC Masters. Keep in mind, new format, no wild card match, straight to semifinal number 1 in the new 64-man match game format. Chris Johnson selected to start this match. Second-year pro. Had some great success early on last season. And a nice start, Dave Ryan.
That it was for Chris Johnson. Tries to overcome the nerves of the 4 bowlers we watched during warm-ups. Laneside, Randy, a moment ago, he appeared to be the most tense, but a lot of pressure on the youngster to try to get that first title. This guy, plenty of wins. His legendary Hall of Fame career. PB brings up play with some help on the 10-pin.
Normally when you see a player that's nervous right before we go on the air, it's because they don't have a good bar reaction. Take a look here. The things that stand out are pretty simple. Chris Johnson, 7 pins a game higher average than Brian Voss. We know that Chris Johnson can throw a lot of strikes. He has to avoid open frames today to get past Brian Voss.
Our first Baby Ruth Real Deal matchup. Back to BB. Late trip on the 7-pin.
One of the things that Brian Voss wanted to do was to get out to a quick start and put pressure on the reigning Rookie of the Year, Chris Johnson. He did that with the first 2 frames, setting the table with a double for Thanksgiving. That would be a turkey. Whoa!
Late help messenger across the deck. Down goes number 10. And a double to open things up for Chris Johnson as well.
Well, and Brian Voss just gave him a wry smile as the head pin goes to the sidewall. It just comes over and plows the 10. And that'll get you fired up early on.
What a challenge it has been, Randy, for this young man. Round of 64, Hall of Famer Norm Duke. The next round, Hall of Famer Pete Weber. With shots like that, he got through both. He's facing a third Hall of Famer in one tournament. Now, Brian Voss, he hopes, is the next victim.
Yeah, talk about murderer's row. That's what he had to go through to get here.
Brian telling us last night how much he loves the spotlight. Moments like this, being on TV, media coverage. Wants to get back to number 1 in the world, be the player of the year. Neat shot like that to get there. You see the round of 64. New format this year, so no qualifying blocks for the members of that elite field of 64, the exempt tour this year. And Jason Hurd went down in 7 games. So in a period of 27 hours, was it ever a busy time for Brian Voss? He bowled 26 games in that span.
His last 3 matches went the distance, 7 games. Remember, it's the best 4 out of 7 wins. And you advance, Brian Voss taking a re-rack, buying himself a little bit of time, making sure that all the pins are perfectly on spot. Because early on, this looks like the person that's going to win is the person who misses, who doesn't miss first.
Great oil for high scores. We're getting exactly that. Voss stays hot. Front 4 for Brian Voss.
Watch the 6 pin, second to the right, goes to the sidewall, saws the 10 out. Brian Voss loves that pin action. First 4 for Brian Voss. Chris Johnson, down 10 with a strike in the 4th, can tie it.
Who comes to us from the Dallas Metroplex, Garland, Texas. 27-year-old. 7 pin, no help that time.
Oh, I just thought it that bad.
And our first non-strike of this semifinal match.
Looks like he flinches right here when he lets it go. You see him come off balance just a little bit. That ball goes a little wide. Still gets to the pocket. Leaves the 7 pin.
Perfect single pin conversion. Numbers, watch it. Ooh. He flirted with danger there in the 7 pin with the channel and that pin, but did take it down by the side. Lane level look, Randy. That was close.
Chris is like, what? No problem.
Back home, parents Harry and Bessie are watching, along with many others. What a great run it was for Chris Johnson. His average in his matches, 236.25, as he bids for his first career title. Shots like that, flushed in the pocket, he may just get it. Chris got 26 voicemails and text messages on Friday when he wrapped things up in the round of 8 to get this far. He's got a big following in Dallas, watching live on ESPN today.
And he's really accomplished a lot just getting here today. We talked about him getting through Norm Duke, now bowling Brian Voss, but he also faced Pete Weber, Robert Smith. You know, the thing about this year's new format, no gimmies.
Stays perfect, does Brian Voss. Brian bowled very well in Milwaukee at the Miller High Life Masters presented by the American Bowling Congress last week. 9th place finish. And told us last night he felt so confident after bowling well in the first major, the season opener, that he could continue, especially with this oil pattern that plays to his game so well.
Well, he's proven that he is a winner on this pattern.
How about 6 in a row? 10 pin.
Boy, it's a good shot, too. The 6 just goes around the 10 this time instead of going to the sidewall and taking it out. Yep, he knew it was good.
First time we've seen him use the plastic spare ball, and he takes out the 10 pin. So each take care of their single pin spare conversions. An excellent start. Things are very close in our first semifinal from Chicagoland. We'll have much more of this semifinal match to see who advances to the finals. A chance at tour exemption for next year and a championship. The PBA on ESPN is brought to you by Miller High Life. Live simply, proudly, boldly, manly. This is the High Life. By Dexter, the #1 bowling shoe in the world. What's your size? And by Education for Financial Wellness, brought to you by Cambridge Credit Counseling Corporation. Well, take a little spin around the Yacht Lake, Michigan. Maybe not in November, but things are awfully hot inside Vernon Hills, Illinois, just outside Chicago. We're flying alongside Randy Peterson again. And Randy, we know one of the most difficult things to do in the PBA Tour is to repeat as a champion, try to win that title back-to-back years, something you know personally is very difficult.
It sure is. I've won 13 times on the PBA Tour and have never defended. In fact, in the history of the PBA, it's only been done 26 times. But I think if anybody can do it, it's Brian Himmler. And I say that because he's the high average coming into today. He's bowled a perfect game. And last night, he told us both he thinks he can shoot 300 today. We've already started off really quick with a bunch of strikes. Let me show you why the scores are so high this week. This is the shark pattern. Used to be called pattern B. Remember that the outside part of the lane is really slick. That's why you see the players playing pretty direct in here. As the lanes break down, you'll see the players start to migrate. But remember, you get a little bit too far outside, the ball's going to hang and not get back to the 1-3 pocket.
Seen some big numbers this week, Randy, on this oil pattern. For more information about those 5 oil patterns, be sure to log on www.pba.com. In addition to all the information about our tour stops and the Pro-Am possibilities. You can buy tickets, you can register. It's all on the website. Be sure to bookmark it on your high-speed online today. pba.com. Back to CJ. Four-pin stands.
And we see it week in and week out on the PBA Tour. When a player makes a marginal shot, he overcompensates. Remember, he went light on this lane. A little overcompensation, goes high, and that's just human nature.
Chris also, Randy, is bowling with an injured right quad. Strained it at the ABC Masters in Milwaukee. Big shot there for CJ. 3 days between last Sunday's final at Miller Park and getting going with the round of 64 here in Chicago. He says it really healed up, felt better, but once he got in competition here, re-aggravated that pulled right quad. This morning stretched for about 45 minutes trying to keep it loose, but he's in some pain today. And a little discomfort. We talked about the huge amount of games Brian Voss has had to go through. It's been a marathon for BV. Asks for help, gets it.
That's why Brian Voss is a Hall of Famer. You know, Brian Voss has got a great physical game, but you don't become a Hall of Famer with just that. You also have to have a great mental game, and Brian Voss has a great mental game. That's why he was able to overcome adversity in his last 3 matches that went the distance. Brian Voss is the kind of guy that sits on the bench and hopes his opponent strikes to force him to get up and perform.
Has struck in 6 of 7. This for a 30-pin lead. Looks for the double. Has it.
That's big. Real big. Catches another double. This ball's going to get into the swish zone, half pocket zone. Great pin action. Brian Voss knows that's a big hit and increases his lead to 20. Or, excuse me, to 30.
Working on a strike. Chris Johnson, help on the 10 pin, and CJ reduces the lead to 20 pins now for Brian Voss. all bowlers on tour this year trying to get exempt for next season. We'll have 16 champions, 4 major title winners. Already one of those, and Danny Wiseman, who was here today, earned $100,000, a 2-year exemption for his win last year. Up to 40 bowlers involved in that list. It will be changed a bit from what we had in the 04-05 tour season. Help on the 10, so he avoids the 7-10 split, but number 7 stays up for Chris Johnson.
Come on, CJ.
Right now, the advantage obviously in Brian Voss's corner because Brian Voss able to play both lanes pretty close to the same. Chris Johnson using 2 different bowling balls in each lane, and it's affected his carry.
Takes care of the 7 with his spare ball. He said his family and friends were so positive with him after a great rookie season. And on a cruise down to Mexico, he thought about what an unbelievable accomplishment it was to be Rookie of the Year. He's just 27. Appears upset with himself now.
But proving that getting the Rookie of the Year honors was no fluke by virtue of being here today. Brian Voss is your winner. He will advance to the title. He needs 7 pins to win. Brian Voss can handle that. Brian Voss with the good pin carry in semifinal number 1. Chris Johnson, just the opposite.
31 pin lead for Brian Voss. 7 to wrap it up for a trip to the finals. How about all 10 for Brian Voss? He's into the championship match.
Again, pin carry being the difference. A couple of shots that Brian Voss went light. He struck. That's the difference in the match. Everything else dead flush for Brian Voss.
His 2 sons watching back home in suburban Atlanta. 13-year-old Josh, 12-year-old Cameron, who aren't bowlers yet, he says. They love football. They love to watch their dad as well. And Brian will have one more match bidding for a championship and next year's exemption. The wait will continue for the youngster Chris Johnson, still bidding for that first ever title. Right now, Voss is the boss. There's no doubt about it. Impressive appearance for Brian Voss in the semi. He'll finish with a 279. Literally a real deal matchup with the Baby Ruth consumption there by Brian Voss.
Well, you know, Chris Johnson had to have the mindset coming into today that he was going to have his hands full with Brian Voss, and that was the case. Chris bowled a great game. He never missed the pocket. One marginal shot where he kind of came in a little bit light. Other than that, that's about the best 228 game you're going to see.
Thing Storm, Atomic, and Turbo.
Outstanding week, plowing through 2 Hall of Famers for Chris Johnson. He'll have to wait a little longer for that first ever title. And Brian Voss, still trying to finish that candy bar, is off to try for a 23rd career championship and that much coveted exemption. We'll have much more coming up from Chicago. The Miller Six-Pack with Brian Himmler and Randy Peterson. As we look back in a moment, and a good one for Tommy Jones. The determination and perseverance of a relative PBA newcomer, Tommy Jones, proved powerful in the championship match of the 2004 Japan Cup this past September. He opened in the first frame, but rebounded with 5 straight strikes. Victory for Jones secured when the number 1 seed Minoru Sendon opened in the 9th. The win gave Jones his first career title, 5 million yen, 52,000 American dollars. Interesting look there. Last time on the PBA Tours, PDW Pete Weber in Burlington, North Carolina, repeating as champ 2002-2003. It has been a while. Time now to learn more about our defending champ at this event here in Chicago, Brian Himmler. It's time for the Miller Six Pack with Randy Peterson.
What is the one weird or exotic animal you would love to have as a pet?
For me, since I'm from Cincinnati, it'd have to be a Bengal tiger because I'm a Bengal fan. I know it's a hard thing to be, but I think I'd look pretty impressive walking with one on a leash down my street.
Who is your favorite ESPN announcer?
I would think Kenny Mayne would be my favorite just because of his off-the-wall humor. And I ran into him at a horse race in Kentucky, and he was very friendly to me.
What's the greatest sports moment you've ever seen?
The one that I remember the most is seeing Pete Rose beat Ty Cobb's record. I was there. I've been to many sports moments. I've been to every Bengals playoff game, which is only a few, so it's hard to miss those. But I was at the coldest playoff game in history. My dad and I made it to the third quarter, and then we drove home and watched the rest on TV because we couldn't even feel our feet.
When was the last time something gave you the chills?
I get the chills every time that I'm at a sporting event and during the national anthem, especially an NFL game. It doesn't matter who's singing it or whatever, it always gives me the chills and almost brings a tear to my eye. Just the energy of the event really seems to start right there.
You could have dinner with any three persons, living or deceased. Who would it be and why?
I think a fun dinner and a whole day would be to have dinner with Tiger Woods, of course. He's the best golfer ever. But then to have dinner and then play with two fun guys, Bill Murray and Adam Sandler. All four of us could go have dinner and play around the golf together. That would be a great day.
What's your best time of the day?
Definitely not the morning. I'm a night owl. I guess I get that from my mom. But yeah, I definitely have a slow riser. If I don't have a reason to get up, I'm usually sleeping in.
This week's Miller High Life Six Pack getting ready for Himmler and Rick Steelsmith. Coming up on the road, our PBA Tour schedule. Next week, we're in Wickliffe, Ohio, just outside Cleveland. Don't forget the 3 different sites for Pro-Ams. You can sign up. Get more information at www.pba.com. After that, we go to Brunswick Zone Lakeside outside St. Louis. And again, there are 3 different bowling centers. You can get involved with our Pro-Ams. Great new feature this year to interact and bowl with the top PBA players in the world. For more, log on to PBA.com. Rick Steelsmith, Brian Himmler. Coming up next, our other semifinalists. See who will take on Brian Voss. Last year, it was such a big moment for Himmler in Chicago. Last year here in Chicago, the Chief, Brian Himmler. 4th event of the PBA Tour season. Needed a victory for an exempt status for next year.
Yeah!
And he got it.
Yeah!
His title defense comes up next on ESPN. Brian the Chief Himmler trying to become just the 27th player all-time PBA history to repeat as a title winner. Since 1990, just 8 have defended their PBA titles. Perhaps some more history today. He's joined now by Randy Peterson.
At the top of the show, Dave, we talked about how difficult it is to defend a title on the PBA Tour. Brian Himmler, how do you go about reversing that trend?
Really, it's like it was just yesterday, so I've been going with the flow all week. I guess it's just sweet home Chicago. But yeah, I mean, the fans have been great, just like last year, and I think after winning last year, they were behind me during the week, and you know, I'd love to finish it off again.
Good luck, Brian.
Thanks.
Dave, back to you.
Going for a win here in Chicago. Perhaps a victory as well. Next week in Cleveland. As our coverage of the PBA Tour continues with the Uniroyal Tire Classic. And it's at 1 o'clock Eastern here on ESPN. Two titles, but it has been a long time for Rick Steelsmith, who told us, hey, the last time I won 97 PBA Nationals, it's not named that anymore. That was a major. It's now the World Championship. He would love to get another victory. Starts his day in style, 60 feet to success for Rick Steelsmith.
Rick said that he went through a little bit of a burnout after last season. He took 2 full months off, spent a lot of time with his family, practiced nothing, did nothing, no bowling for 2 months. Got recharged.
Start for the Chief in the switch zone. 5 goes down a little bit late, but they all tumble into the pit.
We talked about Brian Himmler and what he's done this week with his 300 game and predicting perfection today. 243 average, high amongst our 4 finalists today. Rick Steelsmith will have his hands full, and Brian Himmler starts to strike. Look out.
Our Baby Ruth Real Deal matchup. Semifinal number 2. Lane level look at Brian Himmler. Great view from our great crew and how the oil actually breaks down on this sharp pattern, which has been very beneficial to high scores.
Sure has. You know, we talked about it when we showed you the oil pattern. The players play inside the inside part of the lane. When you get all 4 of the guys playing in the same part of the lane, they burn up a spot, they burn up a little friction area, and it tends to open up the lanes. And the carry percentage, the carry here at Hawthorn lanes, very, very good.
A split. Look out. 6, 7, 10. He fought off his hand. It was okay.
He sure did. And we watched him in warm-ups. That ball was high flush in warm-ups. The lane's now breaking down. Steelsmith will now move to the left, try to get the 6-pin to slide over into the 7.
Split numbers this week for Rick, as is commonly the case. Low stat, difficult shot. Look for a little help trying to kick that 6 across the deck to the 7. Instead, he chops the 10 and the 6, 7 up. So a big open frame for Rick Steelsmith, who had a 16-8 match play record this week. Remember, folks, with the elite field of 64 now, no qualifying blocks, as in last year we had 2 9-game qualifying blocks, then got to match play. Everything is best of 7, starting with the round of 64.
You don't have to deal with qualifying anymore. Now it's just mano y mano. Heads up, match play. Rick Steelsmith using 2 different bowling balls in each lane.
And a 10-pin up for him. Asked all the bowlers last night, Randy, about that different competitive mode really for the players coming in, because they're going right to match play. You've got to have your game face on right away. It's not like you're crossing and qualifying with someone anymore.
Yeah, and I think Brian Voss said it best when he said it's a chess game against the lanes and your opponent. You really have to understand the pattern, because a lot of times it's going to dictate how you play the lanes.
10-pin. Down for Rick Steelsmith, the 40-year-old from Wichita, Kansas. We'd like to do well next week as well. What we told you about, PBA Uniroyal Tire Classic from suburban Cleveland, Ohio. Starts at 1 o'clock Eastern here on ESPN, 10 on the West Coast. For more, log on to ESPN.com. First time the PBA Tour returns to the Cleveland, Ohio area since the mid-90s. Tour exemption, $40,000 prize to be won by our top bowler next week. Be sure to tune in. 10-pin for Himmler. Chief loves bowling here in Chicago. He's got a lot of family and friends. He'll make the trip from Cincinnati. And they love to watch him as well. A 16-6 match play record. His average over 243, and he did have a 300 game. One of 8 300s thrown in the round of 8. It happened for Brian Himmler.
Here's his last ball for his 300 game. Dead flush perfect. You saw in the graphic what he did to reigning PBA Player of the Year, Mika Koivuniemi, 4-0. Brian bowled the least amount of games out of our 4 guys today.
Stays hot. Perfect. He's chucking 3 of 4 frames. And is up by 23 pins. Chief getting his 22nd career 300 game in the highlight we just saw.
Take a look at Brian Himmler's eyes as he looks at his target, and right at release, his eyes go down to the floor. Perfect result.
Facing the alum of Wichita State University, 1989, two-time All-American. And the ball is using on lane 8, the right of the TV pair. Strikes there.
Obviously, Rick Steelsmith makes an adjustment. That ball perfect after the disastrous 4-6-7 split in the second frame. And Rick Steelsmith has to finish on that right lane, something to look for if this match tightens up down the stretch. Right now, trails by 23.
Trying to break, Randy, a 122 tournament winless streak. It's been a while, 97 since he's won. 10 pin. Not going to catch the hot Brian Himmler that way.
Well, in our sport, obviously no defense, only offense. All you can do is what Rick Steelsmith did just there, which is throw it as good as he can throw it. And unfortunately, he only gets 9 for his effort.
Rick competed in a regional the week after last year's tour ended. And tweaked his back, said, I need to rest a little while. Takes care of the 10 pin, as you mentioned. A couple of months off. He caddies in the offseason at a great country club in Wichita. Spent a lot of time with his family. Spending a lot of time knocking down pins this week. How about all the perfect games? We had 8. Including the Chief Brian Himmler. Jason Hurd got himself to the round of 8. Bowled well this week. Himmler is hot.
And Brian Himmler took advantage of the misfortune of Rick Steelsmith. Rick Steelsmith leaves the ringing 10 in the 5th frame, does not double. Brian Himmler gets up, throws a strike in the 5th frame to double and take a 43-pin lead. Excuse me, 33-pin lead.
Sixth frame, bids for the turkey ball.
Now it's a 43-pin lead.
He has got it. Another strike for the Chief, who struck in 5 of 6 frames. And he's got a huge lead. Can he hang on is a question from Chicago. Trying to defend his title and win a 3rd career championship. We'll find out next. The PBA on ESPN is brought to you by Odor Readers with unique Zorbatex technology. Destroys foot odor and absorbs. By Geico, you too could save 15% or more on car insurance. Call Geico at 1-800-947-AUTO. And by Baby Ruth, the official candy bar of the PBA. Baby Ruth, the real deal. From the lake, nice look at Shed Aquarium in Chicago. Rick Steelsmith needs a big comeback here. He's down 43 pins to Brian Himmler. Semifinal number 2 to see who takes on Brian Voss for this year's PBA Chicago Open Championship. Speaking of Rick Steelsmith, with Randy, time now for the Dexter approach.
His heel on his slide foot from a rubber to a felt heel. What this has done is helped him slide consistently on synthetic approaches. This increases his slide and helps his foot and the ball to arrive at the foul line a little bit more in sync or a little bit more together, thus allowing him to go straighter on the fresh oil patterns.
And Randy, he was checking out the footing in our last commercial break. Little experimentation on the approach to see how his shoes would respond here. And he needs a huge response. There's a start. Flush in the pocket. All 10 down in the pit for Rick Steelsmith.
This lane.
Well, he's going to go to a different ball on the left lane. The reason why is to try to get the same reaction he has on both lanes. But what he needs to do is he needs to carry on the left lane. The strike here, he'll cut it to 33 and put a little bit of pressure on Brian Himmler.
Come on now.
There you go.
Never one to be overly demonstrative is Rick Steelsmith with his wife Roxanne and daughter Kayla, son Kyle watching back home. Non-exempt qualifiers here. Randy Weiss had a pretty good showing as part of the different bowlers involved with a 64-man field here. 4 got in as part of that qualifier. The commissioner's pick as well. Top amateur.
Wow. Yeah.
Nice help.
Way to go.
Boy, I'll tell you what, when you really need a hit, that's the kind of hit you're looking for. Brian Himmler going at a 279 pace, just answered the double by Rick Steelsmith. That great carry, the 7-pin falling late.
Working now on a 5-bagger. Chance for a 53-pin lead with another strike for the Chief.
That's right.
Does it again.
Cranking
Well, we
it.
mentioned on the Miller High Life 6-pack with Randy what a huge Bengals fan he is. He's going to have to watch the Cleveland Browns on ESPN tonight, Sunday Night Football. Ray Lewis and the Ravens look to avenge an opening week loss, hosting Jeff Garcia and the Browns. Both teams look for a win to stay alive in a tight race for the AFC North crown. Browns-Ravens also available on ESPN HD. Split.
And this match is over.
4 in the 9, and it's over. It's right, and Rick knows it.
Brian Himmler will have a chance now to successfully defend his title against Brian Voss. Himmler, with striking out 9th and 10th, will actually tie Brian Voss's game of 279.
Bottom of your screen as he goes for the difficult split, but chops the 4-pin. You see the other finishers and the exempt field of 64. There's number 16, our defending player of the year in Mika Koivu-Nemi. Brian Himmler is thinking about big honors, I believe, for the 04-05 season. A long wait for Rick Steelsmith, 123 events now and counting without a title. Will continue, but he's got to be able to build on a great week. He'll drop to 9-19 in his career on television. This is 20th career appearance. Really felt good about last season's start, where he bowled well outside Omaha, 7th in Kansas City, 3rd in Philly. Looks for that messenger across the deck. 10 stays up for Brian Himmler. And Randy, like as we see Kathy and Brad have come from the greater Cincinnati area, they are one of 2 of great supporters for Brian. 10-pin takes care of that.
Thank you.
Brian Himmler has locked this match up. 3 strikes in the 10th. He will shoot. What's my score? 259. 3 in the 10th. Going to be a great championship match with Brian Voss and the defending champion Brian Himmler.
Takes care of them all there, Randy. Brian Himmler had a great start to last season, as did Rick Steelsmith. Now Brian's trying to get himself going in the beginning of this 04-05 year. He wasn't happy. Same case with Rick at the end of last season.
I think both guys had a little bit of the case of the burnouts. They were fried. And, you know, keep in mind that Brian Himmler has,
Good job, Speedy.
as our lane technician removed something from the lane. As you see, our proprietors, Bill and Barb Spigner. Bill actually competed in the tournament this week on a commissioner's exemption. But what I wanted to make, or wanted to say, was that remember that Brian Himmler did not make the top 50 on the point list this year. His exemption was because he won this event last year. The only champion from last year that didn't make the top 50.
Head to head, there it is. Himmler, Voss, the 2 Bryans. 1-1 so far. Someone will take a 2-1 series lead.
Great ball, man. Good start.
And someone will take home the title. One more for Brian Himmler. He hopes he is that bowler. Been a very busy off season for him. Married his wife Julie, and with his stepchildren, Ashley and Cameron, moving into a new house. Brian told us last night he is now completely focused on bowling. Couldn't wait for the regional off-season schedule to end so he could get back to competing against the best bowlers in the world. And there is Julie. It's a full house now for them. Ashley's 8, Cameron's 5 years old. They are here in the building, hoping that Brian can take home a title.
Brian and I are always kidding each other because I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and we're always talking about getting the kids together. Boy, what mayhem that'll turn out to be.
Bring it on, BV.
Bring it on, says Brian Himmler. Our exciting final is coming up. Brian against Brian, Himmler against Voss. The PBA Skills Challenge as well. It's all the way from Chicagoland. We are getting set. Brian Voss, Brian Himmler, head-to-head on TV for the 3rd time. It's a 1-1 record for each so far. The championship of this PBA Chicago Open is on the line. Don't forget, Monday Night Countdown provides comprehensive analysis, interviews, highlights, up-to-the-minute NFL news, and live reports from the site of ABC's Monday Night Football game. All leading us to Monday night on ABC, 2 of the league's most potent offenses. Dante Culpepper, Peyton Manning head-to-head, Vikings and Colts. Colts 4-3, Vikes leaders of the NFC North. Despite that bad loss to the Giants last week, are 5-2, trying to bounce back on Monday Night Football on ABC tomorrow night.
Don't miss next week's telecast of the PBA Uniroyal Tire Classic from Cleveland, and watch Jason Couch take on Rich Wolf in round 1 of the Miller High Life PBA Skills Challenge.
Randy got to work on that crossover 7-10 spare. Very difficult to be following that feature all season long. Last week's winner took a major in the ABC Masters. Who was it? Danny Wiseman. Firing up our crowd today here in Chicago. He made the round of 8 here in Chicagoland. Last week he impressed the crowd as well somewhere, didn't he? Historic setting last week, Miller Park in Milwaukee. Almost 5,000 PBA fans watching Danny Wiseman go for his first ever major championship. The Miller High Life Masters presented by the ABC, and Wiseman was fantastic in the finals against Patrick Allen. Had the front 8 en route to a dominating win. His first ever major championship took place last week in Milwaukee. Which bowler, Brian Voss or Brian Himmler, will earn the exemption for next year and the first place prize of $40,000? We find out in a few moments. First, though, Randy has got the Geico Direct Championship recap.
Thanks, Dave. Earlier in match number 1, it was Brian Voss defeating Chris Johnson by the score of 279 to 228. A 10-pin is the only thing that spoils perfection for Voss in the 6th frame. Then in match number 2, it was Brian Himmler defeating Rick Steelsmith by the score of 257 to 191. The defending champ, too much for Steelsmith, setting up a great championship match for this year's PBA Chicago Open title.
And Randy, we have our finalists. First to Brian Voss. As if you need more motivation, do you have that now, trying to knock off a defending champion in Brian Himmler?
I tell you what, there's going to be a lot of strikes out there. The scores are real high. Brian's a good friend of mine, but he knows what's on the line here.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Brian Himmler, home lane advantage. Got a lot of fans here. Does that help you?
Yeah, I guess I could call it home. I'm comfortable out there. Brian and I have always had awesome matches, and this one's probably going to come down to the 10th, so I'm ready.
You told us yesterday possibility of a 300. Could we see it here?
Yeah, we could. I mean, I think he just missed by 1 shot and me by 2, so you never know.
Big scores are possible, Randy. Final, we're ready.
24 possible strikes. We had 21 from Brian Himmler and Brian Voss. Can expect the same in this title match. Lots on the line. one-year tour exemption for next year. $40,000 at stake. Brian Himmler starts the match, which means he will finish the match on the right lane. Oh! Get out of there, you filthy animal. Last thing you want to do is to see a solid 7 when you go dead flush. Watch this, 7-pin standing. Oh! Brian Himmler's like, hey, cut it out. Can't you?
Down she goes, number 7, and late. And gladly take it. Back to the Hall of Famer. Searching for his 23rd title. Great start.
Brian Voss, the ageless one.
He appears very focused indeed. Serious Brian Voss in that interview a moment ago as we check out the Baby Ruth Real Deal matchup.
Brian Himmler, 244 average. 13 pins a game higher than Brian Voss, but don't let that fool you. This game, I think, will be decided by less than 13 pins.
Great first semifinal for BV. With the 22 titles, tied for 9th, most titles in tour history. Tied with Marshall Holman. Ooh, the 10-pin wiggles and stays up.
I was just going to say, Brian Voss, 46 years of age, the ageless one. I'll tell you what, he's in great physical shape, and you have to be at any age out here. But the one thing that you don't want to see in a title match is that flat 10. There's something about flat 10s, Dave, as opposed to ringing 10s. I mean, it's almost like testing your manliness. You know, flat 10's kind of a weak shot, and ringing 10s are more of a manly kind of shot. And it's something about a weak 10 that does something to a pro bowler's psyche.
Brian Himmler's psyche appears to be right where he wants it. Flush in the pocket again. Shreds the rack. As you see the grit and determination on the face of Himmler at the approach. It has been a while. PDW 2002 and 03 at the Tar Heel Open, Burlington, North Carolina, near Greensboro. It's the last time it's been done on the PBA Tour. Brian Himmler, 1 game away from a repeat victory. Turkey ball try. Yes! He's on.
Yeah, he sure is. He's just high flushing every ball.
Next week he goes for another win, as will Brian Voss. Our coverage of the PBA Tour continues. 64 of the top bowlers on tour roll strikes at the Uniroyal Tire Classic. Here on ESPN, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 10 on the West Coast. For more, log on to ESPN.com. We're in Wickliffe, Ohio next week, outside Cleveland. Brian Voss back on track. Always, as he roots himself on, such a treat to watch him bowl the steady head right up to the approach, leading to big numbers like this.
Yeah, that's why he's won 22 times on the PBA Tour. Very little head movement at release, which means that he's able to keep his eyes focused on his target and repeat shots. And I don't care what the lane conditions are like out here on the PBA Tour. It's not a lead condition. You still have to be accurate and repeat.
10-pin again. Wanted that one.
Well, he weak 10'd on that lane in the second frame. Now he just weak 10'd again. Brian Himmler's got the front 3. Not a good sign. BV's got to figure out a way to get the ball to turn over a little bit harder down the lane to carry that weak 10.
10-pin with a spare ball for Brian Voss. When we return, the exciting conclusion of this final. One Brian will win a champion crown from Chicago. Six current PBA Tour members, including Brian Himmler. Other players like Parker Bowman III, Eric Fulkel, Jason Couch have won PBA titles here in Chicago. Perhaps Brian Voss adds his name to the list as we look in at the Uniroyal Tire Rock and Roll. Randy.
This is the first shot for Brian Himmler in the championship match. And this ball looks high flush, perfect. Ooh, almost solid 7. No.
He'll gladly take it. Part of the Uniroyal Tire Rock and Roll we see each week here on the PBA Tours coverage on Espn. Could hear a pin drop in the house now. It's quiet. Not for long. A resounding report of 10 going down in the pit for Brian Himmler.
Brian Himmler strikes on this left lane. It's going to be awfully tough, in my opinion, for Brian Voss to make up the deficit. And then I think it would be a huge advantage because I think that the left lane is the tough lane. Brian Himmler finishes on the right lane. Brian Voss finishes on the left lane.
30-pin lead, Randy. Chance for a 40-pin advantage. And the front 5. What do we ask him in the interview? Chance for a 300 game.
Oh, yeah, baby. Just open it up. Come on.
Halfway there, Dave Ryan. Look out, Fish. Here comes the hook. That ball's dead flush perfect.
Brian Voss, plenty of experience, title matches. Needs a rally soon. As a start.
I think you're right. He needs a rally, and I think that he's in a position now. You just heard him say it. It's got to happen now. I don't think that Brian Voss can miss from here on out and expect to win this match.
Does have a major championship, the '88 National, not a World Championship. And a streak of winning titles in 12 straight years, the 80s into the 90s. He knows big matches like this. And that's how you respond if you're Brian Voss. The boss for the moment with back-to-back strikes. However, front 5 for the Chief.
You see the max scores here. That's if Brian Voss doesn't miss the rest of the game, he can shoot 260. Brian Himmler cannot strike in one frame, strike out, and shoot 279.
Oh, yeah. Elbow the rack.
With the 7, 6 in a row for Himmler to start the championship match.
Brian Himmler said after he threw this, blow the rack. Are you kidding me? He just opened the rack up like a can opener. 7-pin had no chance. 22 career, 300 games. Perfect through 6 frames.
Including one this week.
Including one this week.
He has the experience. He told us last night, very possible he could roll a 300 game on TV. How about the front 7, Brian?
Yes! Yes!
You better believe it.
Is this guy clairvoyant or something? He tells us last night he thinks he can shoot 300 on television today. Remember, the last person to bowl 300 on television, Mika Koivuniemi, last season's Cambridge Credit Classic in Windsor Locks, Connecticut.
Voss, 10-pin. And with that non-strike, he's going to need some help.
Yeah, he's going to need
a lot of it.
He's going to need some help from Brian Himmler, and it doesn't look like he's going to get any. Remember, last week, Danny Wiseman started with a front 10, shot 289 to win the Masters. Let's see if Brian Himmler can take it a step further and bowl our first perfect game of the season.
On TV. It'd be something. That's a touch high. You can see that one hooked toward the head pin and the nose. And the 4-pin stands for Brian Voss.
I think the difference in this match, aside from the obvious score, is that Brian Himmler throws it faster than Brian Voss. Brian Himmler's ball not reading the change in the lane conditions like Brian Voss's ball is. Brian's,
Now go ahead and do it.
Voss's ball is starting to read the mid lane more, starting to read the differences in the lane conditions. Brian Himmler's ball isn't.
Himmler looks for 8 in a row. Stands up, ends the perfect run, but he's in great position to win it.
He sure is. With a spare here, he's in the 250s. All he has to do is fill frames to win this tournament. Brian Voss is in the high 2-0 range. Brian Voss strikes spares out. He shoots 208. Here's the situation. Brian Voss goes to the wall from the ninth frame on. He shoots 228. Brian Himmler going at a 259 pace.
Himmler fails to become a 17th bowler on TV to bowl a perfect 300 game. But things looking good, and Brian Voss knows it. Time for a caddy bar. Why not? Yes! Yes! It is over. Brian Himmler has repeated here in Chicago, back-to-back PBA titles in Vernon Hills.
Brian Voss eating as he's throwing that shot, but he got ate up today by that man right there.
It's the real deal. All right, it was a good week.
Through his candy bar. His wife Julie looks on. Brian Himmler will celebrate the moment. His stepkids Ashley and Cameron are here as well. And what a moment for Julie. Brian's dad Brad, mom Kathy, we showed you earlier, are here from Cincinnati. Brian told us a story a few years ago on tour. His dad flew in to a tournament in Houston where Brian wasn't bowling well. And he realized, hey, with my family and friends here, I've got to pick it up. I've got to be more mature. And with his dad in the house, bowled much better. Since then, he always loves to have family and friends watching him in big matches. That was the case today, as Himmler will take this title. Now the help comes for Brian Voss. A little too late.
Well, BV will be back. He's had a great week.
Nice wedding present, too, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Since I didn't give you one, this is it.
It's the biggest wedding present I've gotten.
Brian and Julie married just this past summer. And always the showman. Brian Voss will have some fun at the end.
Well, not just a showman, but a great sport as well. You can't be a great champion and be a bad sport. Brian Voss, a great sport.
All right, get him on.
Brian Himmler really deserves this title.
Place.
For good reason, Brian, back-to-back championships here. Who knows, maybe that new pool at their new house, deck, patio. What do you think? They have plenty of possibilities for Brian and Julie.
Well, I think Brian Himmler is going to make a lot of money on the tour this year for the simple fact that he doesn't have to go through qualifying anymore. And the one area where Brian Himmler really stands out in is match play, and it's because of his demeanor and his mindset in a head-to-head type of competition.
Now the split comes.
Did he throw his purse down there?
Great weight. Great weight. Yeah.
We saw Ashley and Cameron enjoying it with Julie and Brad and Kathy, Brian's parents, the whole family, so many friends as well. With Bill Spigner, our Commissioner Fred Fryer there as well. Enjoying the moment and thinking toward next year already. Why not?
Thank you.
277 to 217, a trophy and exemption already for next year. He mirrors his last season.
Last season he did it week 4, this year week 2.
Yeah, Natty. Woo!
A lot of pressure off of him now,
baby.
Dave.
The Cincinnati Kid knocks off the Hall of Famer. Third career title for Brian Himmler. 277-217. We'll wrap it up from Chicago next. The PBA on ESPN is brought to you by Miller High Life. To live simply, proudly, boldly, manly, this is the High Life. By Uniroyal Tires, the official tire of the PBA Tour. Uniroyal Tires, trusted by American families since 1892. And by Geico, you too could save 15% or more on car insurance. Call Geico at 1-800-947-AUTO. There are some very big smiles here with the Himmler family. Ashley, Cameron, Julie, and of course, Brian Himmler. Almost, Chief, a 300 game. As we talked about in the interview prior to that final game, what were your thoughts when you started off so well? How confident were you?
Well, yeah, like even last night in our interview, I called it. I knew the scores were going to be high today. I mean, along with the very playable lane condition and high-scoring house, knew it was possible. It was in my mind. I was more worried about my opponent, that's for sure. But getting out in front, and then once after the 7th frame, I was in total control then, and it was a thought.
So few, Brian, have repeated on the PBA Tour, winning back-to-back titles in the same house. How'd you do it?
I just, every week I think I'm going to win. It just happened to be here 2 weeks ago. And it's only been 3 times, but I think this new format, I mean, I'm all about match play, and it helps me. I focus more in match play, and hard part's getting there, but once I get to match play, I seem to always get close to the show.
This house has been special to you. Your family was here, a lot of friends. How much support did that give you? Was it a big key to your success here this week?
Yeah, I mean, having everybody here at the show is awesome. Some friends drove up, and once again, the 2nd year in a row, my mom and dad have been here for every game of the tournament, and they become a fixture out here when it's within driving distance. They try to make every tournament, so I owe them thanks.
Chief, last year, event number 4, you clinched your exemption. This year it's event number 2, but you struggled a bit in the second half of last season. How do you avoid that again this year?
Well, in the fall, everything comes easy, and I mean, out here the difference between making the cut and missing the cut is just a half a shot a game, and between just a couple of physical issues and not really matching up, just when you're fighting it out here, it's tough to catch up. So during the off time and stuff, working with Chris Schlemmer from Storm, and I've made some changes, and here I am again.
Now, Julie's attending the kids here. How does it feel for you to be able to come with so much family and friends here, the kids watching, to go through this emotional moment? What's that like for you?
Nerve-wracking. But it's over now, so it was wonderful, and this was the first time the kids got to come, so it's pretty emotional. It's wonderful.
I've got the feeling, call me crazy, they may be coming back for the rest of the tour stops, all 18 to go from now on?
I hope so. We hope so, yes.
Well, there's certainly good luck. Brian, congratulations. Brian Himmler, unbelievable moment. Ashley, Cameron, Julie watching with a huge victory. His first of this tour season, earns his exemption, $40,000, and he is all clear for next year on tour. Semifinal number 1, as we see the action from today here in Chicago. Brian Voss was fantastic, bidding for a 23rd career title over last year's Rookie of the Year in Chris Johnson. Brian Himmler was just too tough in his semifinal as well. Nearly that perfect start we had talked about, bidding for a 300 game. Would have been a $10,000 bonus, Brian, but I think you'll take the 40, right?
I'm fine.
He's plenty happy with that. And getting to the semifinal with a victory over Brian Voss, the Hall of Famer. A tremendous tournament for Brian Himmler through match play, and now a tournament championship. Runner-up, Hall of Famer Brian Voss, joined now by Randy.
Brian, in your first match, you looked almost unbeatable. You started with 279, then you ran into the Himmler Express. What happened to your ball reaction in the title match?
Real quickly, I want to say hi to AMF 300, the folks at Baby Ruth, and I want to thank the owners for the PBA. You guys are doing a wonderful job. 279. I mean, it was really over in the 4th frame. I didn't know it, but Brian's a great bowler. You know, he's got a lot of things going for him. And I tell you what, the first time we bowled on TV, I had the front 9 against him. I beat him by more than 100 pins. And he reminded me that he owed me something. So there will be a rematch, Brian. I guarantee it. But, you know, the lanes out there, I bowled good. I didn't miss the pocket. Just a pinch here, a pinch there. That's it out here.
How do you pick up now and prepare for next week?
Well, we got a different pattern. I'm going to go out and practice on it. You know, every pattern that we have plays different, and you have to be creative and use your imagination a little bit. It's a new game plan next week, so I got my work cut out for me.
At 46 years of age, how are you able to physically stay as competitive as you are out here on the tour?
Well, first of all, I love this game. I mean, it's my whole life. I work hard at it. I'm the Vijay Singh of PBA bowling, man. When it's practice time, I'm out there, and I take it seriously. I run, I work out, but I love it. And you have to love it if you want to be the best.
Thanks, Brian. Dave Ryan, I'm sure we haven't seen the last of Brian Voss. Back to you.
Tremendous event for both Brians, Voss and Himmler. As we had a chance, Randy, to recap this tournament, and we knew coming into the final match, it was a pretty good chance for a 300 game, as Brian Himmler talked about. The lane conditions were ripe for that. We saw big scores all day long.
Well, the lane conditions were great all week, and so it was pretty easy to see why, you know, the scores were as high as they were. But, you know, it was puzzling because the start of that last match, you almost thought that Brian Himmler was clairvoyant because of what he told us last night, which was he thought he could shoot 300 today. And we literally almost had 2 300s. So big scores. You know, this is a great facility. Hawthorn Lanes is a great place, and so it's easy to see why we had such big scores this week.
Now, as you talked about with Brian Voss a moment ago, he's not going away. He's in tremendous shape, had a very good offseason. He's focused to get back to the top of the game. Can he do it?
Without question. I think Brian Voss will win again this year. Probably a major. Finished second at last year's U.S. Open. You just can never count him out. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, 22 titles, and he's probably as good as they've ever been on the PBA Tour.
2 electrifying wins. Brian Himmler, Danny Wiseman last week in Milwaukee. What are your thoughts on our first 2 weeks of our brand new tour?
It's been electrifying, to say the least. You know, the thing about Brian Himmler is last year at this very center, he won the 4th week into the season. This year he gets it done in the 2nd week. We've had a lot of fireworks in 2 weeks, so it's going to be a great year, PBA Tour.
Well, congratulations goes to Brian Himmler. A tremendous event today for him as he looks for a victory next week in Wickliffe, Ohio. That's where the PBA Tour is headed, 1 o'clock Eastern time here on ESPN. The winner will take home $40,000. And next year, the 05-06 field exemption. Congratulations to our winner, Brian Himmler. He repeats as champion here in Chicago, the 2004 PBA Chicago Open champion. Now for the entire crew, my partner Randy Peterson, it's Dave Ryan saying so long. Be sure to join us next week, 1 o'clock Eastern time, PBA Uniroyal Tire Classic from Wickliffe, Ohio. It's been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com. We'll see you from suburban Cleveland next week here on ESPN. What a day it was for the Brians, Voss, and of course the Chief Brian Himmler. He has defended his championship, earned an exemption, takes home $40,000 from Chicagoland, a day he'll never forget.
Great job, man.